The morning sun filtered through the massive windows of the Galactic Naval Academy's Advanced Tactics classroom. Commander Veltar, a tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms, stood at the front of the room. His voice echoed as he spoke about human military history to the mixed class of cadets. "The humans," Commander Veltar said, pointing at a holographic display, "are known for their strange fighting methods. They do not follow normal rules of war." Jinho sat quietly in seat 43A near the back of the classroom. He was one of only 3 humans in the class of 30 cadets. The other students were mostly from Altair and Centauri systems. They had blue or green skin and were much taller than humans. Jinho always felt small among them. He took notes on his tablet, trying to focus on the lesson. The other cadets sometimes whispered about humans behind their backs. They called humans lucky or reckless. Jinho had heard these words many times. In the 6 months since he arrived at the academy, suddenly, a loud beeping sound filled the room. A silver drone flew through the open doorway. Its lights flashed red and blue as it moved between the desks. All the cadets turned to watch it. "What? Is this interruption?" Commander Veltar asked, his 4 arms crossing over his chest. The drone stopped directly above Jinho's desk. It lowered a small platform with a beautiful golden trophy on it. The trophy was about the size of a book and had intricate designs carved into its surface. Strange symbols glowed softly along its base. Jinho stared at the trophy in confusion. He had never seen anything like it before. The other cadets began to murmur among themselves. "Unknown cadet in seat 43A, the drone announced in a mechanical voice. "Delivery from the Terran Defense Corps. Please confirm identity for final transfer." Jinho looked around the room. Every pair of alien eyes was staring at him. His face turned red with embarrassment. "I think there's been a mistake," he said quietly. "Are you currently occupying seat 43A? The drone asked. "Yes, but delivery confirmed." "Have a pleasant day." The drone placed the trophy on Jinho's desk and flew away. The room fell completely silent. Commander Veltar walked over to examine the trophy. His large blue eyes widened as he read the inscription. "This bears the official seal of the Terran Defense Corps," he said slowly. "It says, 'For extraordinary valor in the defense of Kepler Station, Hero of the Void.'" The alien cadets gasped. Even Jinho knew about the defense of Kepler Station. It was one of the most famous battles in recent history. A single human pilot had held off an entire enemy fleet for 6 hours. Thousands of civilians had escaped because of that pilot's bravery. "But I've never been to Kepler Station," Jinho said, his voice shaking. "I've never even been in a real starfighter." Kelvin, a tall Altarian cadet with silver skin, leaned forward in his seat. "Perhaps the humans have the wrong person," he said with a smirk. "Mistakes happen." Other alien cadets began to whisper. Some laughed quietly. They thought it was funny that the quiet human boy had received such an important military honor by accident. Commander Veltar picked up the trophy carefully. The metal felt warm in his hands. Advanced scanning lights built into the trophy's base suddenly activated. They scanned Jinho's face and body for several seconds. "Biometric match confirmed," a voice from the trophy announced. "Recipient verified. This award belongs to the person currently designated as Jinho. Student identification number 7429. The room became even quieter. The alien cadets stopped laughing. Commander Veltar's expression changed from confusion to something like fear. "Class dismissed," he said quickly. "Cadet Jinho, please remain behind." The other students gathered their things and left the room. Some of them stared at Jinho as they walked past his desk. Others whispered to each other in their alien languages. Jinho could not understand the words, but he could hear the confusion in their voices. When the room was empty, Commander Veltar sat down across from Jinho. The trophy sat between them on the desk, still glowing softly. "Jinho," the commander said gently, "I must ask you some questions. Are you certain you have never served in the military?" "Yes, sir. I came here straight from civilian school on Earth. My parents are teachers. I've never even held a real weapon." Have you ever been to the Kepler system? No, sir. I had to look it up on a star map when I first heard about the battle in history class. Commander Veltar studied Jinho's face carefully. The young human looked honest and confused. His hands shook slightly as he spoke. The biometric scanner. Cannot be wrong, the commander said. It uses DNA, retinal patterns, and neural signatures. These things cannot be faked or transferred. Jinho touched the trophy with one finger. It felt strangely familiar, even though he was sure he had never seen it before. For just a moment, he thought he could smell something like burning metal and feel the vibration of spaceship engines. What happens now? Jinho asked. Now, I must report this to Admiral Kashari. She will want to speak with you immediately. Commander Veltar stood up and gathered the trophy. This is a very serious matter, Cadet. The hero of Kepler Station is a legend throughout the galaxy. As they walked through the hallways of the Academy, other students stopped to stare. News traveled fast in the Academy. Everyone had already heard about the mysterious trophy delivery. Some cadets pointed at Jinho as he passed. Others took pictures with their communication devices. Jinho felt like he was walking through a strange dream. 6 months ago, he had been a normal student on Earth. He had applied to the Galactic Naval Academy because he wanted to see the stars. His grades were good but not exceptional. His physical fitness scores were average for a human. There was nothing special about him, but now he carried a trophy that claimed he was one of the greatest heroes in galactic history. They reached the Admiral's office. Commander Veltar pressed a button beside the door. Admiral Kashari, I need to speak with you urgently. It concerns the human cadet Jinho in a very unusual situation. Send him in, came the reply from inside the office. Jinho took a deep breath and walked through the door. Admiral Kashari was a centauri with pale green skin and large black eyes. She was known throughout the academy for her strict discipline and sharp intelligence. She looked at the trophy in Commander Veltar's hands, then at Jinho. Explain, she said simply. As Commander Veltar told the story, Jinho watched the Admiral's expression change. Her large eyes grew wider with each detail. When the commander finished speaking, she was quiet for a long time. Leave us, she finally said to Commander Veltar. When they were alone, Admiral Kashari stood up and walked around her desk. She stopped directly in front of Jinho and studied his face carefully. Young human, she said, either you are the greatest liar in the galaxy, or we have a mystery that could change everything we think we know about identity and memory. Jinho looked up at her with honest, confused eyes. I really don't know what's happening, he said quietly. I just want to understand why this trophy came to me. Admiral Kashari nodded slowly. Outside her window, the twin suns of the Academy's home system were beginning to set. Tomorrow would bring answers, but tonight would bring only questions and very strange dreams. Admiral Kashari's office felt cold and silent as she stared at Jinho across her massive desk. The trophy sat between them like a puzzle that neither could solve. The Admiral's long fingers drummed against the metal surface as she thought. Jinho, she said finally, I want you to tell me everything about your life before coming to this academy. Start from the beginning. Jinho shifted in his chair. There isn't much to tell, Admiral. I grew up on Earth in a small city called Beeson. My parents, Jihoon and Soyoung, are both teachers at the local school. I have a younger sister named Yoonji. We lived a quiet life. What made you want to join the academy? I always loved looking at the stars. When I was 12, I saw a documentary about the Galactic Naval Academy. I decided I wanted to explore space and maybe help keep peace between different worlds. Admiral Kashari made notes on her tablet. Your application records show normal. Test scores, nothing exceptional. Your medical records show no history of military service or combat training. That's because I never had any, Jinho said. The most dangerous thing I ever did was play gravit-ball with my friends. The Admiral leaned back in her chair. Yet this trophy's biometric scanner identifies you as the pilot who saved Kepler Station. That pilot was called the greatest tactical mind of his generation. After 2 more hours of questions, Admiral Kashari finally dismissed Jinho. He walked slowly back to his dormitory room, his mind spinning with confusion. Other cadets whispered as he passed, but he barely noticed them. His roommate Minho was waiting for him when he opened the door. Minho was also human, from Seoul on Earth. He was taller than Jinho and better at sports, but they had become close friends during their time at the academy. "Everyone's talking about what happened in class," Minho said immediately. "Is it true? Did you really get a trophy from the defense corps?" Jinho sat down heavily on his bed. "It's true, but I don't understand any of it. They think I'm the hero of Kepler Station." "That's impossible," Minho said. "We were in high school when that battle happened. I remember watching the news reports with my family, I know. But the biometric scanner confirmed my identity. Admiral Kishari doesn't think I'm lying." Minho grabbed his tablet from his desk. "Let's research this battle. Maybe we can find some clues." They spent the next several hours reading everything they could find about the defense of Kepler Station. The battle had happened 3 years ago. A massive fleet from the Vorthan hegemony had attacked the peaceful mining station without warning. "Look at this," Minho said, pointing at his screen. The station had over 50,000 civilian workers and their families. When the Vorthans attacked, most of the defense fleet was away on training exercises. Jinho read over his friend's shoulder. "It says here that only one pilot was available to respond. He flew an old training fighter against 47 enemy ships." "How is that even possible?" Minho asked. They kept reading. The unknown pilot had used tactics that military experts still studied. He had turned the Vorthan's superior numbers against them by using the station's asteroid field as cover. For 6 hours, he had led them on a deadly chase through the floating rocks. "The evacuation ships escaped during those 6 hours," Jinho read aloud. 49,732 civilians made it to safety. When military reinforcements finally arrived, they found the pilot's ship floating dead in space. "Was he killed?" Minho asked. "Nobody knows. The ship was empty when they found it. Some reports say the pilot ejected and was picked up by a medical ship. Others say he just disappeared." Jinho felt a strange chill as he read the details. Something about the asteroid field seemed familiar, even though he had never been to the Kepler system. "His call sign was Ghost 7, Minho continued reading. "But his real identity was classified at the highest levels. Even now, 3 years later, nobody knows who he was." They found video recordings of the battle taken from the evacuation ships. Jinho watched as a single small fighter danced between the massive enemy vessels. The pilot's movements were like poetry, flowing from one impossible maneuver to another. "Whoever this pilot was," Minho said quietly, "he was the best fighter pilot in human history." As they watched, Jinho felt something strange in his mind. The tactical moves on the screen seemed obvious to him. He could see what the pilot would do next before it happened. "He's going to use the large asteroid's gravity to slingshot behind the enemy cruiser," Jinho said. A moment later, that was exactly what happened on the screen. Minho stared at his friend. "How did you know that?" I don't know. It just seemed like the logical thing to do." They watched more footage. Again and again, Jinho predicted the pilot's moves with perfect accuracy. Each time, Minho looked more worried. "Jinho," he said finally, "I think we need to tell someone about this." But Jinho was not listening. On the screen, the pilot's fighter was making its final run through the asteroid field. Suddenly, Jinho's head began to hurt. Images flashed through his mind like broken glass. He saw the inside of a starfighter cockpit. His hands moved across controls that he somehow knew how to operate. Through the fighter's window, he saw massive enemy ships firing at him. He could feel the fear and determination of a pilot pushing his ship beyond its limits. "Get behind the iron rock cluster," he whispered, not knowing why he spoke the words on the screen. The pilot did exactly that. Jinho's head hurt worse. More images came faster now. He saw evacuation ships full of frightened families. He felt the weight of knowing that thousands of lives depended on his actions. He heard his own voice speaking into a radio, giving orders to the evacuation fleet. "Minho," he said weakly, "something's wrong with my head." His friend jumped up as Jinho collapsed on his bed. The pain was like fire spreading through his brain. In the middle of the pain, he heard a voice that sounded like his own, but older and tired. "Keep them safe," the voice said. "No matter what happens, keep them safe." Then everything went dark. Jinho woke up in the Academy's medical center several hours later. Dr. Hana, the head medical officer, was scanning his head with a blue light device. She was human, originally from Incheon on Earth, and one of the few human staff members at the Academy. "How are you feeling?" she asked when she saw him wake up. "Confused. What happened to me?" "Your friend brought you here after you collapsed. I've been running some tests." Dr. Hana looked at her tablet with a puzzled expression. "Your brain scans show some very unusual activity." "What kind of activity?" "It's hard to explain. Parts of your mind that should be dormant are showing signs of recent use. It's almost like you have memories that aren't quite your own." Minho appeared beside the medical bed. "I told Dr. Hana what happened while we were watching the battle footage. How you knew what the pilot would do before he did it." Dr. Hana sat down beside the bed. "Jinho, I need to ask you something important. Have you ever had any kind of brain surgery or neural modification?" "No, never. Why would I need something like that?" "Because your brain scan shows signs of advanced neural work. Someone with very sophisticated equipment has been inside your mind." Jinho felt cold fear spreading through his chest. "What does that mean?" "It means," Dr. Hana said carefully, "that someone has either added memories to your brain or hidden memories that were already there." Outside the medical center's window, the Academy's nightlights twinkled like distant stars. Somewhere in the darkness, answers waited to be found. 3 days passed before Dr. Hana felt confident enough to run deeper tests on Jinho's brain. During those days, he attended classes as normal, but everything felt different. Other cadets stared at him in the hallways. Some alien students moved away when he approached. The story of the mysterious trophy had spread throughout the entire Academy. "Today we will try something called a neural compatibility test," Dr. Hana explained as she prepared her equipment. "It's normally used to see if cadets can handle advanced flight simulators. But in your case, it might help us understand what's hidden in your mind." Jinho lay down on the examination table. The medical center was quiet except for the soft humming of machines. Through the large windows, he could see other cadets walking to their afternoon classes. "This won't hurt," Dr. Hana said as she placed a metal headband around Jinho's forehead. "You might feel a little dizzy, but that's normal." She activated the scanner. Immediately, Jinho felt a strange, tingling sensation in his head. Colors began to flash behind his closed eyes. The tingling grew stronger. "I'm detecting significant neural activity in your memory centers," Dr. Hana said, watching her screens. "This is much more intense than I expected." Suddenly, the tingling became painful. Jinho gripped the sides of the examination table as images exploded through his mind. He saw star charts that he had never studied but somehow understood perfectly. He felt his hands moving across ship controls with practiced ease. "Dr. Hana," he said through gritted teeth, "something's happening. I know, your brain is accessing memories that were deeply buried. Try to stay calm," but staying calm was impossible. The images came faster now. Jinho saw himself in a pilot's uniform that he had never worn. He stood in a briefing room with officers he had never met, but whose names he somehow knew. Captain Park, Commander Yoon, Admiral Kim. The pain grew worse. Jinho saw explosions in space and felt the fear of battle. He heard his own voice shouting orders over a radio, coordinating with evacuation ships. He felt the desperate weight of responsibility as thousands of lives depended on his decisions. "Target the lead cruiser's engine port," he whispered, not knowing where the words came from. Dr. Hana leaned closer. "What did you say?" "Use the asteroid's shadow to mask your approach vector," Jinho continued, his voice sounding different now, older, more confident. "Evacuation ships need 17 more minutes to clear the station. Jinho, you're accessing very specific tactical knowledge. These aren't normal memories." The images became overwhelming. Jinho saw his fighter ship taking damage from enemy weapons. He felt the controls becoming sluggish in his hands. Through the cockpit window, he watched evacuation ships carrying families to safety. "All civilian transports clear," he heard his own voice say, beginning final attack run. Then the pain became too much. Jinho's body convulsed on the examination table. Dr. Hana quickly shut down the scanner, but it was too late. He was lost in the flood of returning memories. He saw his fighter ship diving toward the largest enemy vessel. Alarm screamed in his cockpit as his shields failed. But he pressed forward because the evacuation ships needed more time. He armed his missiles and aimed for the enemy ship's command center. "This is Ghost 7, he heard himself say. "Tell them I kept the promise." The fighter exploded in brilliant light. Then everything went dark. Jinho woke up on the floor of the medical center. Dr. Hana was kneeling beside him, checking his pulse. Her face looked worried and confused. "How long was I unconscious?" he asked weakly. 20 minutes. "Jinho, you were speaking during the neural feedback. You gave tactical commands that aren't in any civilian database. You used military codes that are still classified." He sat up slowly. His head still hurt, but the pain was different now. It felt like he was trying to remember a dream that was slowly fading away. "I saw the battle," he said quietly. "I was there. I was the pilot. That's impossible. The records show you were in high school on Earth when that battle happened." "I know what the records say, but I remember being in that cockpit. I remember making the decision to sacrifice my ship to save the evacuation fleet." Dr. Hana helped him back onto the examination table. "Your brain scans show that someone has done very sophisticated work on your mind. The kind of work that requires military-grade equipment and expertise." "What kind of work?" "Memory suppression, identity replacement, neural pathway modification. This is technology that only exists in the most advanced military research facilities." Jinho felt cold fear growing in his stomach. "Are you saying someone changed my mind? Made me forget who I really am?" "I'm saying someone made you forget who you used to be and gave you a completely new identity?" "The Jinho you think you are might be artificial." Before Jinho could respond, the medical center's door opened. Minho walked in with a serious expression on his face. "Jinho, we need to talk," he said. "I found something important." "What is it?" Minho looked around nervously. "Not here. Too many people might be listening." They left the medical center and walked to a quiet garden area behind the dormitories. The garden was empty except for some small alien birds that lived in the trees. "I've been digging deeper into the Kepler station battle," Minho said. "I used my access to the Academy's military history database. There are files that regular students aren't supposed to see." "What did you find?" The pilot's real name was Captain Lee Seung-jin. He was 24 years old and considered one of the most promising tactical minds in the human fleet. But here's the strange part. All records of him stopped completely after the battle. Jinho felt his chest tighten. "What do you mean they stop? No death certificate, no military funeral, no family notifications? It's like he just disappeared from all official records. But I found something else." Minho pulled out his tablet and showed Jinho a classified medical report. 3 days after the battle, a medical ship brought a critically injured pilot to the Terran Medical Research Station. The pilot had severe brain trauma from combat stimulant overdose. He was listed as identity unknown in the medical files. Combat stimulants? Drugs that military pilots use during long battles. They keep you alert and focused, but too much can damage your brain permanently. According to this report, the unknown pilot had enough stimulants in his system to kill 3 normal people. Jinho read the medical report carefully. The description of the pilot's injuries matched exactly what he had felt during the neural scan. "The report says they tried an experimental procedure," Minho continued. "Something called consciousness transfer. They moved the pilot's mind into a cloned body to save his life." "A cloned body?" "A perfect genetic copy, but with no memories or personality, like a blank human computer. They transferred the damaged mind into the healthy body." but the trauma was so severe that they had to suppress most of his memories to prevent permanent insanity. Jinho stared at the report in shock. You think I'm that cloned body? That I'm actually Captain Lee Seung-jin? I think the pilot who saved Kepler Station is alive inside your mind, but he's been sleeping for 3 years. The trophy delivery somehow triggered his memories to start coming back. As if summoned by their conversation, Yuna appeared from behind one of the garden trees. She was a communications specialist cadet with short black hair and quick, intelligent eyes. I've been listening to your conversation, she said without apology. And I have something important to add. Yuna, this is private, Minho said. Not anymore, it isn't. I intercepted a coded military transmission this morning. Someone knows that Jinho's real identity is being discovered. She showed them her communication device. The message was sent from Terran Command to someone at this academy. It mentioned Project Mindbridge and gave specific orders to monitor a student named Jinho. Project Mindbridge? Jinho asked. I think that's the code name for the consciousness transfer program. And I think someone here at the academy has been watching you since the day you arrived. The three friends looked at each other in silence. Around them, the alien birds continued singing their strange songs, unaware that the quiet human boy they had known was actually one of the greatest heroes in galactic history. What do we do now? Jinho asked. Now, said a new voice behind them. You come with me. They turned to see a man in a dark uniform walking toward them. He was human, middle-aged, with cold eyes and the bearing of a professional soldier. Agent Do-Yun, Terran Intelligence, he said, showing them an identification. Badge, we need to talk. Agent Do-Yun led them to a secure conference room deep inside the Academy's administration building. The room had no windows and thick metal walls. Jinho, Minho, and Yuna sat on one side of a long table while the agent sat across from them. He placed a locked briefcase on the table between them. Before we begin, Agent Do-Yun said, I need you to understand that everything I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. Sharing this information with anyone outside this room could result in serious consequences. We understand, Jinho said quietly. The agent opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick file. The cover was marked with symbols that Jinho did not recognize, but somehow they seemed familiar. Your real name, Agent Do-Yun said, looking directly at Jinho, is Captain Lee Seung-jin. You are 27 years old, not 21 as your current identity suggests? You graduated first in your class from the Naval Flight Academy 6 years ago. Jinho felt his mouth go dry. But I remember growing up on Earth. I remember my parents, my sister. Those memories are artificial. They were implanted during the consciousness transfer process to give you a stable identity foundation. Agent Do-Yun pulled out several photographs from the file. The first showed a young man in a pilot's uniform. He looked exactly like Jinho, but older and more confident. This is you 3 years ago, the agent said. Captain Lee Seung-jin, assigned to the 47th Deep Space Squadron. Your tactical abilities were considered extraordinary, even by human standards. Minho leaned forward to look at the photographs. He looks exactly like Jinho, but different somehow. Different because Seung-jin had experienced combat, loss, and the weight of command. The Jinho identity was created to be innocent and peaceful. Agent Do-Yun showed them more photographs. Seung-jin receiving commendations. Seung-jin with his squadron. Mates, Seung-jin in the cockpit of his fighter ship. You were known for developing new tactical approaches that combine traditional strategy with creative improvisation. Your commanding officers called you unpredictable in the best possible way. Yuna spoke up. What happened during the Kepler Station battle? Captain Seung-jin was on leave when the attack began. He was visiting the station to see his girlfriend, Dr. Murray, who worked in the medical facility there. When the Vorthons attacked, he was the only qualified pilot available. The agent pulled out a detailed battle report. He flew a training fighter, not even a real combat ship, against 47 enemy vessels, including 3 heavy cruisers. Military analysts still can't fully explain how he managed to hold them off for 6 hours. I remember feeling desperate, Jinho said suddenly. I knew I couldn't win, but I had to buy time for the evacuation ships. The combat stimulants in your system allowed you to react faster than humanly possible, but the dose should have killed you. Your determination to save those civilians kept you conscious long past the point where your body should have shut down. Agent Doyan showed them medical scans from after the battle. When we found your ship, you were in a coma with massive brain trauma. The stimulants had damaged your neural pathways so severely that normal medical treatment was impossible. So, you tried the consciousness transfer, Minho said. Project Mindbridge was experimental. We had only tested it on volunteer patients with terminal brain diseases. You were the first trauma case, the agent explained the process. Sungjin's damaged consciousness had been extracted from his original body and transferred into a perfect genetic clone. But the trauma was so severe that most of his memories had to be suppressed to prevent mental breakdown. We gave you a new identity based on a real person who had died in childhood. Jinho was a boy from Bazan who died in a transport accident. When he was 8 years old, we used his life story as a template and added peaceful, happy memories. What about my parents? My sister? Jinho asked. Actors hired by Terran Intelligence. They played their roles for 4 years, giving you a stable family environment while your mind healed. They genuinely cared for you, but they were not your real family. The room fell silent. Jinho stared at the photographs of his real face, trying to reconcile them with his memories of a quiet childhood on Earth. Where are my real family? He asked. Agent Doyan's expression became sad. Captain Sungjin was an orphan. His parents died when he was 15. He had no living relatives. What? About Dr. Myray? You said she was his girlfriend. She died during the evacuation of Kepler Station. A Vorthan missile hit her medical ship before it could reach safety. Jinho felt a deep pain in his chest that had nothing to do with his current memories. Somewhere in his suppressed mind, Captain Sungjin was grieving for a woman he had loved and lost. The trophy delivery was triggered by an automatic system, Agent Doyan continued. When you enrolled at the academy, your biometric signature matched the records for Captain Sungjin. The system sent the trophy to honor the hero, not knowing that the hero's identity had been changed. Yuna asked, "Why didn't you just tell him the truth from the beginning?" Because the psychological trauma was too severe. We hoped that Jinho could live a normal, peaceful life without ever needing to remember the pain and responsibility that Sungjin carried. But now the memories are coming back, Minho said. Yes, the trophy seems to have triggered a cascade effect. Dr. Hanna's neural scans show that the suppression barriers are breaking down. Within a few weeks, you will remember everything. Agent Doyan leaned forward across the table. That's why I'm here, Jinho. Or should I call you Sungjin? We need to know which identity you want to keep. What do you mean? We can reinforce the memory suppression. Make the Jinho identity permanent and bury Sungjin forever. You would live a normal life with no memory of the battle or the pain of loss. Or we can help you integrate both identities. Combine Jinho's peaceful nature with Sungjin's tactical genius and combat experience. But that process is dangerous, and you would have to live with all of Sungjin's memories, including the painful ones. Jinho looked at his friends. Minho and Yuna watched him with worried expressions. There's something else you should know, Agent Doyan said. Long-range sensors have detected Vorthan fleet movements near the Outer Rim. Our analysts believe they're planning another major offensive. What does that have to do with me? Captain Sungjin's tactical innovations from the Kepler battle have been studied and incorporated into fleet doctrine. But the Vorthans have also studied that battle. They've developed countermeasures for every tactic Sungjin used. Agent Doyan pulled out the final document from his file. Our military leaders believe that only Sungjin himself could develop new tactics to counter their adaptations. But those tactics would require both his combat experience and his creative problem-solving abilities. You're asking me to choose between a peaceful life and going back to war, Jinho said. I'm asking you to choose between personal happiness and the safety of potentially millions of civilians who might die in the next Vorthan offensive. The alien cadets who had once dismissed humans as lucky amateurs would be shocked to learn that they had been studying alongside one of the greatest tactical minds in known space. But more than that, they would finally understand why humans were so effective in combat, not because they were reckless, but because they were willing to sacrifice everything for others. Outside the secure conference room, the academy continued its normal routine. Cadets attended classes, studied for exams, and dreamed of their futures among the stars. None of them knew that the quiet human boy from Seat 43A was about to make a decision that could change the course of galactic history. "How long do I have to decide?" Jinho asked. 3 days, Agent Do-Yun said. "After that, the memory cascade will progress too far for us to control the process safely." Jinho looked down at the photographs of Captain Sungjin, the hero he used. To be somewhere in his mind, that hero was waiting to wake up. Jinho barely slept for 3 nights after his meeting with Agent Do-Yun. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes of memories that belonged to Captain Sungjin. He saw Dr. Murray's face, beautiful and kind, moments before her medical ship was destroyed. He felt the weight of command and the desperate fear of knowing that thousands of lives depended on his decisions. During the day, his tactical abilities began to surface more frequently. In advanced strategy class, he found himself correcting the instructor's explanations of famous battles. In the flight simulator, his scores improved dramatically overnight. Other cadets began to notice the change. "Jinho is flying differently," said Kelvin, the Altarian cadet who had once mocked him. "Yesterday he executed a maneuver that I have never seen before." Captain Minji, the flight instructor, called Jinho to her office after his third perfect simulation run. "Your improvement is remarkable," she said, studying his test scores. "These results suggest advanced combat training, but your records show no military background." "I've been studying harder," Jinho said weakly. "Studying doesn't teach you instinctive tactical responses. You're flying like someone with years of combat experience." Captain Minji was a middle-aged woman with graying hair and sharp eyes. She had served in 3 conflicts and could recognize a natural pilot when she saw one. "There's something you're not telling me, Cadet. But whatever it is, you have exceptional potential. I'm recommending you for the Advanced Combat Training Program." That evening, Jinho sat in the garden with Minho and Yuna. They had become his closest confidants during this difficult time. "And the memories are getting stronger," he told them. "I remember tactical formations that aren't taught here. I know the weaknesses of ship designs that I've never studied." "How does it feel?" Yuna asked gently. "Like I'm becoming someone else? Or maybe like I'm remembering who I really am?" Jinho picked up a small stone and turned it over in his hands. "The hardest part is Dr. Murray. I remember loving her so much that it felt like my heart would break. But those feelings belong to Sungjin, not me. Maybe they belong to both of you," Minho suggested. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of several alien cadets. Kelvin approached with 3 other students from different species. Their expressions were serious but respectful. "We wish to speak with you," Kelvin said formally. "About what?" Jinho asked. "About the rumors that you are the hero of Kepler Station." Jinho looked at his friends. They had agreed to keep the truth secret, but gossip traveled fast in the academy. "What have you heard?" he asked carefully. A Centauri cadet named Veltar stepped forward. "We have been watching your performance in classes. Your tactical knowledge has increased dramatically in recent days. You demonstrate understanding of combat principles that are not taught to first-year students." "We also heard about the trophy delivery," added a third alien, a tall being with blue skin and large eyes. "The biometric scanner identified you specifically." Kelvin crossed his arms over his chest. "For months, many of us have believed that humans succeed in combat through luck or recklessness. We thought your species lacked true tactical sophistication." "And now?" Jinho asked. "Now we begin to understand that we were wrong. If you truly are the pilot who saved Kepler Station, then you represent something we did not know was possible." The alien cadets explained that they had been analyzing the Kepler Station battle in their strategic studies group. They had concluded that the tactics used were beyond what they had thought any single pilot could achieve. The coordination required to manage 47 enemy ships while protecting an evacuation fleet, Veltar said, would challenge an entire command staff. To do it alone in combat requires a mind that thinks differently than ours. We wish to learn from you, Kelvin said simply. That night, Jinho made his decision. He sent a message to Agent Doyan requesting an emergency meeting. They met again in the secure conference room. This time, Dr. Hana was also present to oversee the medical aspects of the procedure. I've decided to integrate both identities, Jinho said. I want to remember everything, even the painful parts. Are you certain? Agent Doyan asked. The psychological trauma will be severe? You will remember losing Dr. Murray. You will remember the fear and responsibility of command. There's no going back once we begin. I'm certain. But I have conditions. What conditions? First, I want my friends Minho and Yuna to be involved in the process. They've been with me through this discovery, and I trust them. Agreed. Second, I want to continue at the academy after the integration. I want to finish my education and maybe become an instructor. That can be arranged. Third, I want to help develop new tactics to counter the Vorthan threat. But I won't be just a weapon. I want to be a teacher who helps other species understand how humans think in combat. Agent Doyan smiled for the first time since Jinho had met him. Captain Sungjin would be proud of those conditions. He always believed that cooperation between species was the key to lasting peace. Dr. Hana prepared the neural integration equipment. The process would take several hours and required careful monitoring to prevent psychological damage. The goal, she explained, is to merge Jinho's peaceful nature with Sungjin's combat experience and tactical genius. If successful, you'll have the best qualities of both identities. And if it fails, you could lose both identities and become someone entirely different. Or worse, the trauma could cause a complete mental breakdown. Jinho lay down on the medical table. Minho and Yuna stood beside him, holding his hands for support. I'm ready, he said. Dr. Hana activated the neural integration device. Immediately, Jinho felt his mind expanding as suppressed memories began to flow back. He saw his childhood in an orphanage, his struggle to excel in flight school, his first combat mission. He remembered meeting Dr. Murray at a medical conference. Her laugh, her intelligence, her dedication to saving lives. He felt the joy of falling in love and the agony of losing her. The battle memories came next. The desperate fight through the asteroid field. The weight of knowing that every second of delay meant more civilian lives saved. The decision to sacrifice his own ship to ensure the evacuation fleet's escape, but something new happened during the integration. Jinho's peaceful nature began to influence Sungjin's memories. The anger and pain softened into determination and hope. The desire for revenge became a commitment to protecting others. His neural patterns are stabilizing, Dr. Hana reported. The integration appears to be successful. When Jinho opened his eyes several hours later, he was different. He had Sungjin's tactical genius and combat experience, but also Jinho's compassion and desire for peace. The trauma was still there, but it was manageable. How do you feel? Agent Doyan asked. Jinho sat up slowly, testing his memories. Like, myself, all of myself, for the first time. And what do you plan to do now? Now I'm going to teach my alien classmates that human tactics aren't based on luck or recklessness. They're based on our willingness to sacrifice everything for others, even strangers. And I'm going to help them understand that the greatest strength comes from working together. Outside the medical center, news of the successful integration spread quickly through the Academy's intelligence network. Within hours, Admiral Kashari received orders from Terran Command to begin developing new joint species tactical doctrines under Jinho's guidance. The quiet boy from Seat 43A was gone. In his place stood someone who was both a legendary hero and a dedicated teacher, ready to help forge a new future for cooperation between the species of the galaxy. 2 weeks after the successful neural integration, Jinho stood before a mixed class of 50 cadets in the Academy's largest tactical simulation room. His new role as assistant instructor in advanced combat theory had been approved by Admiral Keshari herself. The students, both human and alien, watched him with mixtures of curiosity, respect, and uncertainty. Today we will discuss the difference between aggression and tactics. Jinho began, his voice carrying the confidence of Captain Sungjin combined with the gentleness of his former identity. Many species believe that humans win battles through reckless attacks. This is not true. He activated the holographic display, showing the Kepler station battle from multiple angles. Humans win because we understand that every life has value, and we are willing to sacrifice ourselves to protect others. This gives us a tactical advantage that pure aggression cannot match. Kelvin raised his hand. Over the past weeks, the Altarian cadet had become one of Junho's most eager students. How does self-sacrifice become a tactical advantage? Because it allows us to make decisions that our enemies cannot predict. A Vorthan commander expects his opponent to preserve his own forces. When a human pilot is willing to destroy his own ship to save civilians, it creates possibilities that exist outside normal tactical thinking. Jinho demonstrated with the hologram, showing how his desperate attack had forced the entire Vorthan fleet to change formation, creating the gap that allowed the evacuation ships to escape. But this only works if the sacrifice achieves a greater goal, he continued. Dying for no purpose is not brave. It is wasteful. The alien cadets took careful notes. For the first time, they were beginning to understand the logic behind human combat behavior. Their lesson was interrupted by an urgent alarm. Admiral Kasharia's voice echoed through the Academy's communication system. All senior cadets and instructors report to the main briefing room immediately. We have received urgent intelligence from Fleet Command. The simulation room emptied. Quickly, as students and faculty rushed to the briefing room, Jinho found himself walking beside Captain Minji and several other instructors. This is unusual, Captain Minji said. Emergency briefings are rare during the academic term. The briefing room was packed with nearly 300 people. Admiral Keshari stood at the front with several senior officers that Jinho recognized from his memories as Captain Sungjin. 3 hours ago, the Admiral began, long-range sensors detected a massive Vorthan fleet movement. 42 ships, including 6 heavy battle cruisers, have crossed into the Outer Rim territories. A holographic star map appeared above the crowd, showing red dots indicating enemy ship positions. Their target appears to be the Altair system. 2 billion civilians live on the worlds of that system, including many families of cadets currently at this academy. Gasps and worried murmurs filled the room. Jinho saw Kelvin and several other Altarian students turn pale with fear. Fleet Command has ordered all available ships to respond, but the nearest battle group is 6 days away. The Vorthan fleet will reach Altair in 4 days. Admiral Kashari paused, letting the implications sink in. There is one possibility for faster response. The Academy Training Squadron consists of 12 modern frigates normally used for senior cadet exercises. If we departed immediately with volunteer crews, we could reach Altair in 3 days. The room erupted in discussions. Captain Minji stood up. Admiral, the training squadron is not equipped for major combat operations. Those ships are designed for education, not war. I am aware of the limitations, Captain. However, our tactical analysis suggests that even a small force might be able to delay the Vorthan advance long enough for the main fleet to arrive. Professor Taiwook, the human psychology instructor, raised his hand. What would be the survival probability for such a mission? Admiral Kesharia's expression became grim. Approximately 30%. The room fell silent. Jinho felt the weight of every eye turning toward him. As the hero of Kepler Station, his opinion would carry enormous influence. He stood up slowly. Admiral, may I address the assembly? You may. Jinho walked to the front of the room. He looked out at the faces of his fellow humans and the alien students he had come to respect and care for. 3 years ago, Captain Sungjin faced a similar choice at Kepler Station. One pilot against an overwhelming enemy force with civilian lives at stake. He chose to fight because he understood something important. He gestured toward the Altarian cadets in the audience. The beings we call aliens are not truly alien too. Yes, they have families. They feel fear and love and hope just as we do. The children of Altair are worth protecting, just as the families at Kepler Station were worth protecting. Kelvin stood up, his silver skin gleaming under the room's lights. If there is to be a volunteer mission, I request permission to join. Other alien cadets began standing as well. A Centauri student named Veltar, a tall blue-skinned being called Nix. Within minutes, more than half the senior cadets were on their feet. I am honored by your courage, Admiral Kashari said. But this is not a training exercise. This is actual combat against a superior enemy force. Sun Wu, a Centauri cadet who had previously been arrogant about his species' superiority, stepped forward. Admiral, I have spent months learning from human tactical methods. I believe I understand now what makes humans effective in combat. It is not recklessness. It is the willingness to risk everything for those who cannot protect themselves. Jinho felt a surge of pride in his students. They had learned the most important lesson he could teach them. Admiral, he said, I volunteer to lead the tactical planning for this mission, not as Captain Sungjin, but as Jinho, teacher and friend to these cadets who are willing to risk their lives for others. Admiral Keshari studied the faces around the room. She saw determination mixed with fear, but no hesitation. Very well. We will depart in 6 hours with volunteer crews. Jinho, I am appointing you as Chief Tactical Officer for the mission. You will work with the fleet instructors to develop a battle plan. As the assembly broke up into smaller planning groups, Jinho found himself surrounded by his students. Humans and aliens stood together, united by their shared commitment to protecting innocent lives. Professor, Kelvin said, we will need new tactics. The Vorthans have studied the Kepler Station battle. They will be prepared for the strategies. Captain Sungjin used. You're right, Jinho replied. But they've studied Captain Sungjin's tactics. They haven't studied what happens when humans and aliens work together as equals. Minho and Yuna appeared at his side. We're coming with you, Minho said simply. This isn't your fight. Yes, it is, Yuna replied. We've been with you since the beginning of this journey. We're not abandoning you now. As they worked through the night planning their desperate mission, Jinho realized that something fundamental had changed. The alien cadets no longer saw humans as chaotic or lucky. They saw them as beings who cared more about others than themselves. And the human cadets had learned that their alien classmates possessed courage and honor equal to their own. The Vorthans had expected to face human tactics. Instead, they would face something new, a combined force that drew on the best qualities of multiple species, led by someone who had learned that the greatest strength came not from individual heroism, but from bringing different peoples together outside the academy. The stars shone with cold light, unaware that the next day would see a small fleet of training ships heading toward a battle that would test everything the cadets had learned about courage, sacrifice, and the bonds that could form between different species willing to fight for each other. The Academy Training Squadron departed at dawn, 12 frigates carrying crews of volunteer cadets and instructors. Jinho stood on the bridge of the lead ship, the Anne's Harmony, watching the stars shift as they entered hyperspace. Around him, a mixed crew of humans and aliens worked with focused determination. Hyperspace transition complete, reported Lieutenant Yuna from the communications station. Estimated arrival at Altair system in 67 hours. Understood, Jinho replied. As Chief Tactical Officer, he wore the temporary rank of Commander, but he felt the weight of responsibility far beyond any rank insignia. Captain Minji, who commanded the small fleet, stood beside him studying tactical displays. The Vorthan fleet is larger than anything we faced in training. 6 heavy cruisers, 12 destroyers, and 24 fighter squadrons. Against our 12 frigates and 36 fighters, Jinho said. But we have advantages they don't expect. Over the past 24 hours, Jinho had worked with his students to develop completely new tactical doctrines. They combined human unpredictability with Altarian precision, Centauri technological expertise, and the strategic patience of the blue-skinned Kepler species. "Show me the formation plans." Again, Captain Minji requested. Jinho activated the holographic display. Instead of traditional battle lines, his plan called for mixed-species fighter wings, using coordinated attacks that would be impossible without perfect trust between pilots of different species. The key is that Vorthan tactics are designed to fight individual species, he explained. They know how humans attack aggressively, how Altarians prefer defensive positions, how Centauri use technological superiority, but they've never faced combined tactics where each species covers the other's weaknesses. Kelvin approached from the navigation station. "Commander, I've been analyzing Vorthan fleet movements from their previous battles. They always maintain a standard formation because it allows them to coordinate their diverse ship types effectively." "Exactly. They achieve unity through rigid structure. We'll achieve it through flexibility and mutual trust." Minho looked up from his engineering console. "The weapon modifications are complete. Each of our ships now carries a mix of human, Altarian, and Centauri weapon systems. The Vorthans won't know how to predict our firepower capabilities." The journey to Altair gave them time to practice their new tactics. In the ship's training simulators, mixed crews learned to work together in ways that had never been attempted. Before, human pilots learned to use Altarian defensive techniques. Alien gunners trained with human targeting systems designed for rapid-fire suppression. "The most difficult part," Jinho explained to his senior staff, "is that everyone must trust their squadron mates completely. When a human pilot dives into enemy fire, his Altarian wingman must follow without hesitation. When a Centauri commander calls for retreat, the human fighters must obey instantly." Sunwoo, who served as tactical coordinator for the alien cadets, nodded thoughtfully. "This requires a level of trust that most of our species have never achieved. With humans, that's why it will work," Jinho said. "The Vorthans expect us to fight as separate groups with separate agendas. They can't predict tactics based on perfect cooperation." 18 hours before their arrival at Altair, they received disturbing intelligence from long-range sensors. The Vorthan fleet had split into 3 groups, approaching the system from different directions. "They're planning a coordinated assault on all 3 inhabited worlds simultaneously," Captain Minji observed. "Classic Vorthan intimidation tactics. Force the defenders to spread their forces and then overwhelm each group separately." Jinho studied the enemy formation carefully. His enhanced mind, combining Sungjin's tactical experience with Jinho's strategic education, began to see possibilities that neither identity could have conceived alone. "No," he said slowly, "they're giving us an opportunity." "How?" "By splitting their forces, they've created the possibility for defeat in detail. If we can hit one group hard enough and fast enough, we can destroy it before the others can respond." He outlined his plan. The Academy Squadron would use their speed advantage to attack the smallest Vorthan group first. But instead of traditional ship-to-ship combat, they would use a completely new approach. "We'll deploy in a spiral formation," he explained. "Human fighters will make aggressive attacks to draw enemy attention. While the Vorthans focus on the humans, Altarian ships will use stealth technology to position themselves for precision strikes. Centauri vessels will provide long-range support and electronic warfare." "And our frigates?" Captain Minji asked. "The frigates will do something no military academy teaches. We'll ram them." The bridge fell silent. Ramming attacks were considered desperate and wasteful, certain to destroy both ships involved. "Not suicide attacks," Jinho clarified quickly. "Calculated ramming. We'll use our ship's emergency teleporters to evacuate crews at the last second. The ships themselves become guided missiles." Kelvin's eyes widened. "That's completely outside normal tactical thinking." "Exactly. The Vorthans will never see it coming because it requires crews willing to sacrifice their ships for the mission. They spent the remaining travel time practicing the complex maneuvers required for their plan. Pilots learned to coordinate attacks across species lines. Crews practiced emergency evacuations. Engineers modified the ship's navigation systems to allow for precision, ramming attacks. As they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Altair system, they could see the Vorthan fleet in the distance. The enemy ships moved in perfect formation, confident in their superior numbers and firepower. "All ships, this is Commander Jinho," he announced over the fleet communication system. "Remember, we're not here to win a traditional battle. We're here to prove that cooperation between species can achieve the impossible." "Acknowledged, Commander," came replies from 12 different ship captains. The first Vorthan group consisted of 2 heavy cruisers, 4 destroyers, and 8 fighter squadrons. Against the Academy squadron's 4 frigates and 12 fighters, the odds seemed overwhelming. "Executing Harmony Formation," Jinho announced, using the name they had chosen. For their new tactical approach, the Academy ships spread out in their spiral pattern. Human fighters, led by Minho in a modified training fighter, dove straight toward the enemy formation. The Vorthans responded exactly as predicted, focusing their firepower on the aggressive human attack, while the enemy concentrated on the humans. Altarian ships activated their stealth systems and moved into flanking positions. Kelvin commanded one of these ships, using patience and precision to line up perfect targeting solutions. "Centauri Support Group, begin electronic warfare," Jinho ordered. Sunwoo and his team activated jamming systems that confused Vorthan sensors. Suddenly, the enemy fleet found itself fighting partially blind while under attack from multiple directions. "Execute ramming sequence," Jinho commanded. 2 of the Academy frigates, their crews already evacuated to other ships, accelerated toward the Vorthan heavy cruisers. The enemy captains, seeing the approaching ships, tried to shoot them down, but the frigates had been modified with extra armor and shield generators. The first frigate struck the lead Vorthan cruiser amidships, its shields and hull breaching the enemy's defenses. The explosion destroyed both ships, but it also created a gap in the enemy formation. "All fighters, exploit the breach," Jinho ordered. The mixed squadron of human and alien fighters poured through the gap created by the ramming attack. Working in perfect coordination, they destroyed the remaining Vorthan ships in less than 10 minutes. When the battle was over, the Academy squadron had lost 2 frigates but destroyed an entire Vorthan battle group. More importantly, they had proved that their new tactics worked. "Commander," Captain Minji said, "long-range sensors show the other 2 Vorthan groups are changing course. They're combining their forces instead of continuing the 3-pronged attack." "Good. That means our tactics surprised them." "They're abandoning their original plan." Yuna looked up from her communications station. "Sir, I'm receiving a message from the Vorthan Fleet Commander. They're requesting negotiations?" Jinho smiled. "Patch them through." The main screen showed a Vorthan commander with the scarred features typical of his species. "Human vessel, identify yourself." "This is Commander Jinho of the Galactic Naval Academy Training Squadron." "Training Squadron?" The Vorthan commander looked confused. "You destroyed our 3rd battle group with training ships?" "We destroyed your battle group with cooperation, Commander. Something your species has never learned to value. We demand to know what new weapons you used against us." "We used trust, courage, and the willingness of different species to sacrifice for each other. Weapons you cannot defend against because you cannot understand them." The Vorthan commander considered this for several long moments. "We will withdraw from this system, but this is not over, human." "No," Jinho agreed, "it's not over. But the next time you face us, you'll be fighting not just humans, but beings from across the galaxy who have learned to work together." As the Vorthan fleet retreated, the Academy squadron received congratulations from across the Altair system. 2 billion civilians had been saved by a handful of training ships crewed by students, who had learned that their differences could be strengths rather than weaknesses. What do we do? 6 months after the Battle of Altair, the Galactic Naval Academy had transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. The hallways that once echoed with the whispers of species keeping to their own kind now buzzed with mixed groups of cadets working together on tactical problems that would have been impossible to solve alone. Jinho stood at the front of the Academy's largest auditorium, looking out at an audience of 300 senior cadets from 12 different species. Today marked the graduation ceremony for the Academy's first class trained in integrated species tactics, the revolutionary new doctrine that had emerged from their desperate mission to Altair. When I first sat in seat 43A, Jinho began, his voice carrying easily through the vast room, I thought I was just another student trying to understand the galaxy around me. I had no idea that I carried within me the memories of a hero, or that heroism itself was about to be redefined. In the front row, Admiral Kashari sat beside visiting dignitaries from across the galaxy. Fleet commanders, planetary governors, and diplomatic representatives had come to witness this new chapter in interspecies cooperation. The old definition of heroism, Jinho continued, focused on individual achievement. One person standing against impossible odds. But we have learned something more important. True strength comes not from standing alone, but from lifting others up with us. Kelvin, now wearing the insignia of a junior officer, sat with his squadron mates from the Altair mission. The silver-skinned Altarian had become one of the most effective tactical coordinators in the fleet, specializing in defensive formations that protected more aggressive human attack strategies. Today, you graduate not as representatives of individual species, but as members of something new. You are the first generation of truly galactic officers trained to see differences as advantages rather than obstacles. The war with the Vorthan. Hegemony had continued, but its character had changed completely. The integrated tactics developed at the Academy had spread throughout the fleet. Battle after battle, Vorthan commanders found themselves facing unpredictable combinations of species working in perfect harmony. What had once been an expanding empire was now a retreating force, confused and demoralized by enemies who refused to fight according to the old rules. Minho, Jinho called to his oldest friend, please bring forward the first diploma. Minho, now serving as the Academy's Director of Interspecies Training, carried a crystalline tablet to the podium. Each graduation certificate was inscribed in the languages of all 12 major galactic species, a symbol of the unity they had achieved. Kelvin of Altair, Jinho announced, graduated with highest honors in tactical coordination. Your specialty? Will be teaching patience and precision to species that prefer more direct approaches. As Kelvin accepted his diploma, the audience erupted in applause. The sound came from voices both human and alien, a harmony that would have been impossible just months before. One by one, the graduates received their assignments. Sunwoo would return to Centauri space as an ambassador, teaching the technological specialists of his world how to integrate with more intuitive species. Veltar had been selected to establish a new training facility in neutral space, where species could learn from each other without the political complications of home worlds. Yuna of Earth, Jinho called, graduated with highest honors in interspecies communication. Your assignment is perhaps the most important of all. You will be developing new languages that combine the logical precision of alien syntax with the emotional flexibility of human expression. Yuna stepped forward to accept her diploma, her eyes bright with excitement about the challenges ahead. Over the past months, she had become the Academy's expert in helping different species understand not just each other's words, but each other's thoughts and feelings. When all the diplomas had been distributed, Admiral Keshari took the podium. 6 months ago, she said, a small fleet of training ships accomplished something that our greatest strategic minds thought impossible. They defeated a superior enemy force not through superior technology or numbers, but through superior cooperation. She gestured toward the graduates. These officers represent the future of galactic defense. They have learned that the question is not whether humans or Altarians or Centauri are the best warriors. The question is what we can accomplish when we work together. The Admiral paused, looking directly at Jinho. Commander Jinho, please join me at the podium. Gino walked forward, uncertain what was about to happen. Admiral Kashari held a familiar golden object in her hands. "This is the trophy that started it all," she said, showing the audience the award that had been delivered to seat 43A so many months ago. It was inscribed for extraordinary valor in the defense of Kepler Station, Hero of the Void. She handed the trophy to Jinho, then picked up a second, identical award. "Today I present you with a new trophy. This one is inscribed simply, to Jinho, Teacher of the Impossible, Hero of Unity." The audience rose to its feet in thunderous applause. Jinho looked down at the two trophies in his hands, one representing the hero he had been, and one representing the teacher he had become. "The first trophy honored individual courage," Admiral Kashari continued. "The second honors something greater, the courage to bring different peoples together and show them that their differences make them stronger." As the ceremony concluded, Jinho found himself surrounded by his students and colleagues. Beings from across the galaxy came forward to congratulate him and to share their plans for spreading integrated tactics throughout their home fleets. "Professor," Kelvin said, "what will you do now?" "You could command any ship in the fleet." Jinho looked around the auditorium, seeing aliens and humans working together as naturally as if they had been born to it. "I think I'll stay here. There are more students to teach. And we've only just begun to explore what's possible when different species trust each other completely." Minho appeared at his side. "Remember when you thought the trophy was delivered to the wrong person?" "It was delivered to the wrong person," Janho replied with a smile. "Captain Sungjin was a hero, but he was a hero alone. Jinho is something better. He's a hero who makes other heroes." Professor Taiwook, who had become the Academy's leading expert in interspecies psychology, joined their conversation. "The psychological profiles of our mixed crews show something remarkable. When beings from different species work closely together, they don't just become more effective soldiers. They become more empathetic, more creative, more capable of seeing beyond their own limitations. That's the real victory," Jinho said. "Not just winning battles, but changing how we think about ourselves and each other." Yuna pointed toward the large windows overlooking the Academy's training grounds. Outside, mixed groups of new cadets were practicing formation flying, their ships moving in perfect harmony despite representing 6 different species and technologies. "Look at them," she said. 6 months ago, those species wouldn't even train in the same airspace. Now they fly together like they've been partners their whole lives." As the sun set over the Academy, Jinho walked to his new office in the Tactics building. The walls were covered with star charts showing the locations of integrated training facilities being established across the galaxy.